welcome to the first and potentially only rendition of A Day in the Life of an SDR. I am joined by Olivia and by Joanna here, and they're going to be walking us through a little bit about what it's actually like to be in a sales development role, as well as, just shed some light on being a woman in tech sales more broadly. So I guess with that being said, I'd love to, throw it over to the two of you to actually introduce yourself. So Olivia, why don't you walk us through a bit about you?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Olivia Datta. I'm an SDR here at Klue. I guess like a little bit about me. I actually come from a retail background. So I was in retail for 7 years. I thought that was it for me. And then all of a sudden my eyes were kind of opened up to the opportunity of like, oh my gosh, the tech industry. I was like, there's so many cool opportunities. So recently made the transition over.
Awesome. Joanna, over to you.
Hi, I'm Joanna Simpson. I joined Klue in January of 2021. And before I joined Klue, I was an elementary school teacher for 10 years. So I have done an absolute 180 in my career. It's sometimes even when I say it out loud, it's like, did that actually happen? That did happen. I taught in Vancouver for 6 years in the public system. And then I actually went to Hong Kong and taught internationally for 4 years at international schools out there, and then transitioned back, moved home to Vancouver. And it was kind of this like perfect sweet spot of kind of jumping into a new career and throwing myself in the deep end. And now have been at Klue for about 8 months in the SDR role, as well as with Liv.
Mm-hmm. Creeping up to that 1 year mark somehow. Seriously. We're actually apparently almost in 2022. So that's great. Awesome. Well, I guess like the first thing I'd love to understand, because again, as both of you guys shared, you come from a not necessarily like traditional sales background. I don't even know if there is a traditional sales background, but I'd love to understand from both of you, like, how did you even know that you wanted to get into sales in the first place? Maybe Joanna, we'll start with you.
Sure. And you know what, honestly, it's not an easy answer for me, I think, or it's not like a linear answer. I think for me, I was always super interested in tech, and being a teacher, kind of cool. Like I used tons of tech in my classroom, and it was something that I loved and I was really passionate about. And I saw like the difference that it made in the kids' life, my life as a teacher, and also even in the parents' lives as well. And so for me, I always kind of had that passion for tech. The sales side, to be honest, it was something that I saw as like a challenge, and it was kind of this like unknown, and I had a bit of like fear around it almost. And I do come from a family of, it's kind of actually hilarious, like teachers. And then also I've got a bunch of family members in sales, majority males in my family that are in sales, but it always kind of intrigued me. And I think for me, kind of knowing that I was sort of having these feelings of wanting to have a career change, I kind of blended the two. I was like, okay, tech, excited, passionate about it, sales, bit unknown. And I just started asking questions. I just started networking like mad in Vancouver with anybody that would talk to me for like a coffee, a beer, like picked their brains. And then it kind of got me more excited and gave me, I think, more courage to just kind of go for it. And then I started looking at job descriptions and started applying. And and then I decided to go for Klue and jumped into the sales role.
That's awesome. And I'm curious too, because I mean, as you said, you kind of always looked at sales as a challenge and as this unknown entity. Mm-hmm. How did you get that, or I guess move that from being like an intimidating kind of like fear type of unknown to like an exciting, let's do this kind of an unknown?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think a lot of it for me was that networking piece and just starting to put myself out there at that point, right? It wasn't like I necessarily was jumping into job descriptions and trying to get a job. I started with asking questions and being curious and learning more about what the role actually entailed. And then honestly, I think talking to people, I got a lot of courage as well, because people were like, you can do it. Like, think about your skills as a teacher. Like, you can talk to people super well, you can present well, you're organized, all those kind of things. And I started to think, you know what, I actually do have a lot of these soft skills that I can transfer over into sales. And it started to become less and less scary. And it was just sort of like, it almost was just this, I guess it was like this ambiguous term for me. And then I started to really actually get a bit granular and kind of figure it out, and was like, I can do this. Why am I afraid of it? I'm not anymore. Like, I've got all these skills, I've got things in my personality and who I am that I was like, I'm going to go for it. And then I wanted to kind of jump into interviews and started looking at job descriptions. And I think what was cool too for me is I then was able to make parallels. Like, in the job description, I saw stuff and I was like, yep, I can talk to people. I am organized. I'm energetic. I'm highly motivated, like all those things. And I was like, check. And it just kind of gave me more confidence, and then went for it.
That's awesome. And I mean, again, obviously, like, networking, I think, is a huge, huge thing. And as you said, like, can give you the confidence to kind of take that leap. Was it only kind of sales people that you were networking with, or were you also trying to learn about like other like career paths as well?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because when I knew I wanted to transfer, I started super big. I was like, I want to transfer into the business world.
That is a big term. That's a very big umbrella. Yes.
Whole thing. And so, like, as a teaching, it's so great, but like, you're kind of pigeonholed, like, you're on sort of planet Mars. I didn't even have LinkedIn before I joined Klue. So like that, everything, I just started building my foundation, right? Kind of got LinkedIn, got comfortable, worked on my resume, again, started asking questions, that networking. And I think for me, part of that was, what do I actually want to do? Like, sales was, I think, sort of the big back burner for me, that I was like, I want to do it, but I was a little bit afraid of it. But I talked to customer success people. I talked to the people team. I explored, product and marketing, like, a little bit, and then sales as well. So my umbrella was huge. And then I started to get a little bit more granular, and I think it was kind of cool too, because it got me to sales and kind of got me where I think I initially wanted to go, but didn't really know that I needed to ask those questions. Even with Klue, like, super awesome. I had chats with Katie, who's marketing, Kala, who's head of sales, and then Kathy, who's the head of our people team. And I honestly it was so cool, because I just got to be really transparent. I said, look, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do. I was a teacher for 10 years. I want to make a move. And, I was really honest and transparent, and they were great. They chatted me through stuff, and kind of, again, we're like, what are you good at? What are your passions? Like, where do you see yourself in the future? And it helped me to, I think, really kind of fine comb what I wanted to do. And then it got me to sales. And then I felt really sure about it when I actually went for that role and applied for that role.
Awesome. I love that. And Olivia, like, I'm very curious to kind of understand your journey, because as you said, like, you worked in retail sales, which I think a lot of people, myself included, did during university and in high school, and even after that. And I guess I'm curious, like, how did you know that you wanted to really make a career of sales? And like, how did you know that you wanted to transition out of, business to consumer sales to like business to business sales?
It's funny when I think at the very beginning of my journey, like, even before getting into retail, I was actually a graphic designer. I went to art school. I was really like artsy, and I happened to just go into the one retail store, and I was like, oh, this seems like a cool place to work. So I just applied. I thought it was just going to be something on the side. And, I've learned that I'm quite competitive naturally in nature. I'm pretty energetic. I'm very passionate about anything that I talk about. And before I knew it, like, I had a career in sales, and I was like, wow, like, I'm actually like good at this. I'm natural at talking to people. When people come in the door, I just want to see how their day is going, by the end of this conversation, you're going to realize I'm a chatty Kathy. Like, I like to talk. And it just seemed like it was something that I naturally was thriving in. And, it's funny. I feel like the pandemic gave a lot of us the opportunity to kind of like pause and reflect. That's definitely something that happened to me, to be like, okay, like, where do I really want to take this? I had the opportunities in retail to really go really, really far. I was working for an amazing company. And then I started thinking about the tech scene. It was always kind of like something that I was thinking about in the back of my head, but I was like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, not even that I couldn't do it, but I'm like, I don't think that they're going to take me. Like, that was what was going on in my mind. Cause I was like, I work in retail, and I'm I come from an art school. Like I was at an art college. I was like, there's no way I have it. When I think tech, I'm like, oh man, it's like Bachelor of Science or something along those lines. And I actually had a conversation, a really dear friend of mine, head of recruiting at a tech company. And I was like, I'm interested. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what the roles are. I was like, should I even try? And immediately, like what she shared with me was, it's like, it's your core competencies. It's who you are as a person that tech companies are looking for. So, Joe's talking about, organized, motivated, personable. Like these are all skill sets that I was like listening. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I have these things, and I'm like, they'll transfer. And there's other like hard skills, like you can be taught that kind of stuff. And as long as you've got like that natural grit and that grind, like you're going to be successful. So from that, I really saw it's like, there actually can be an opportunity. And so, I think the scariest part was starting to apply. And, going through and being like, okay, I'm just gonna throw myself out there. I'm going to see what sticks. And from there, like, I mean, I feel like I'm transitioning. Not sure if I've even answered your question at this point, to be honest. And
you answered 12 questions in one.
I'm going to answer all 12 questions right here. Like I said, Kathy. But that's when I ended up seeing like Klue's job description. And it was great. Like the verbiage that we were using. It's like, I still remember that one line, and I'll keep talking to it. It's like, if you're getting fired up reading this, like apply. And I was like, I am so fired up. I'm like, I'm going to apply. And still remember like reading my cover letter to my boyfriend being like, I don't know, like, does this sound okay? Like, I'm just throwing myself out there. I'm just being myself. And he's like, just ship it. And I mean, here we are. Obviously it worked. And I'm like, so excited to just be here.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, again, like obviously like you chatted with like someone in your network who gave you the confidence to kind of take that leap and like be confident in yourself and your capabilities. You start applying to a bunch of jobs. There are a lot of like companies out there, especially right now. There are a ton of companies that are hiring salespeople. Why did you choose Klue? Like of all of the companies out there?
I'm so happy you're asking that question. It was the one, I swear it was like the one question when I was getting interviewed, I didn't get a chance to actually answer that.
Really?
I did so much research on Klue before coming in. Immediately what drew me in, and this is something that's super important to me, it's like the number one value that I've got is culture. And like our culture is, I mean, I might sound biased because now I work here, but even what I was seeing before was like, it really seemed like a family, and that they really valued the same types of things that I was valuing. I was going onto Glassdoor. I saw like raving reviews. Also like going onto the website, checking out videos similar to this. Like I was watching videos on other SDRs and what's their life like? Like, what is it like being in the role? And I was really, attracted to the type of things that I was hearing and I was reading, looking on LinkedIn to seeing the types of posts that other people are sharing, and even the verbiage as to how they're sharing it. Immediately, like I just felt like it represented me. Joe, curious, how about for you? Like, why did you choose Klue too?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think I was thinking too, Liv, when you were going on in your speech, that I bet you they didn't ask you that question in the interview, by the way, because you probably ran out of time. And they were like, "Oh, sorry, Liv, you don't get."
They're like, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then it was the 30 minutes. No,
yeah, and we're done. Oh gosh, I forgot my train of thought. Oh yeah, I was gonna say like it's one of those things. As I remember too, even doing like transferring into the career, I was sort of like, you have your apprehensive feelings, but at the end of the day, it's like, I feel like what's cool about our generation, females, males too, anybody, it doesn't matter, but it's like, you have to start somewhere, and it's okay to change careers or start in something and move. And it is about those skills and like who you are and how you present yourself. That's important. Anybody can learn how to, we can teach you how to send an email. We can teach you how to pick up a phone call. We can't teach you to be like a good human and to work super hard and to have the passion. Like that's got to come intrinsically. But everybody has that. Right. And so I think that's got to give you the courage to go for jobs and go for sales. And especially like, there's not very many females in sales. That's silly. There should be a lot more because we totally dominate at it and we're super good. So
Yes.
any chick can do it. But I honestly, that was part of a huge reason why I chose Klue is I felt like I could just be myself right away. Every single person that I talked to in the interview process, I was just like 100% Joanna, and they almost like pulled it out of me even more. And like that, I thought that that was so cool, like just so comfortable and wanting to know your story and who you are and what you could add to the company. It wasn't about like, this is the job and you're in this box. It's like, how can you actually be out here and what are you going to bring to Klue? How can you elevate us? And like, how cool is that to feel like, you know, you're not just a person in the company, like you are actually making a difference. And that has been, you know, Liv and I now have been here for a while, but like that has been through the interview process all the way through until right now, right? Like all of us have an opinion, have a voice, and it's like, that's incredible. And I felt that through the hiring process. And that's why I chose Klue.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, you talked a little bit there, Joanna, about just being like a woman in sales and like more specifically, like a woman in tech sales. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because I think oftentimes for whatever reason, people and specifically women or people who identify as women don't necessarily consider sales and specifically sales within tech. And so I'd love if you guys could kind of speak to like both of your experiences being a woman in tech sales.
Joe, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of one of those things. And maybe again, my only experience has been at Klue, but at the end of the day, like it honestly doesn't matter if you're a female or a male or identify in whatever you do. It honestly doesn't matter. And I feel like I have felt that being in the role, and I'm trying to remember back to being in the role. And I think, you know, you do hear all of this stuff where it's like, you know, it's a grind and it's a hustle and you get shut down all the time and you need thick skin and like, you know, you kind of hear all that sort of stuff. But like, you know, and there is elements of that, like in every single job is tough. Like sales is not easy. It's tough. You got to show up and you got to keep going, right? Like you might get knocked down, you pick yourself back up and you keep going. And it's kind of that cool job of like riding these highs of like making a difference in somebody's life by selling them something and being able to talk to different types of people. And I think, you know, as a female in sales, I think it's empowering. And I think that like, again, it doesn't matter. Like anybody can do it. Our team is like has males and females and people from like, you know, wholly different parts. And I'm also 35. Like I'm an SDR and I'm 35. I'm like the mom of the team. Like I'm old also, which has been super humbling, you know, and has been a totally big experience for me. And I'm not going to say it's been like super great the entire time. I've had times where that's hard, right? To start over in your career and kind of start like you're maybe starting from the bottom and you're doing something brand new and learning new skills. But like, if you have that desire to learn and to try something and I think to really like level yourself up, then sales is awesome for that. And I think that that's like a huge thing in it. It's like, if you want to learn from your teammates, there's like, we have such a good respect in our culture. Cause I think, you know, sales is also, I think one thing that's intimidating. I remember this when I first joined out. Now I remember is the number, your quota, right? Got to hit this. Honestly, I feel like our team doesn't really talk about it. Of course it's a thing, but it's all about like, how can we enable each other to be better? You know, and if somebody is on a high and doing super well, we're all like, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? How'd you do that? What's happening? You know, we're just like hungry puppies. And it's that, but it's like never like, oh, Liv's doing better than me this month. Like, oh man, like that's not the culture. It's more so like, okay, Liv's doing this. She's this is what's happening right now. And then we all kind of talk about it and we're like, let's try it. We just try stuff all the time. And so you kind of go from, again, like maybe being in a box to just like exploding that. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like I talked in circles there, but
no, it was good. It was great.
It was great. It was awesome.
Also a rambler and a chat. Like I love that I was kind of teasing Liv and I'm like the exact same.
I can't wait for us to like watch back, be like, whoa, we said a lot.
Alex, this is cool. Good. I got 3 questions in.
No, it's great. I am loving this conversation. And again, I mean, as you said, I think Sales can be really intimidating and it can be a hard job at times, of course, but sales is not unique in that nature, right? Every job has its ups and downs. Every job can be hard. And as women, we can do hard things. We do hard things all the time.
Oh,
So,
heck yeah.
yeah.
That's the one thing I'll acknowledge. Like, I think it's really great that we're having this conversation, and it's like, I don't know, being female in tech, like, I think that makes it super strong. It's like, we're coming on in here all passionate. We know how to talk to people. And it's like, man, when you get those wins, like, they feel so good. Like you like book that meeting, or you have that conversation, you get that demo, and literally, like, that's the one thing I love. And I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what Joe said. It's like, I'll message my SDR team, be like, heck yeah, I finally did this. And everybody's just so stoked for you. And I think, being a very passionate person naturally, like being surrounded by other people who care, like really care about what we're doing and what we're up to, is like, it just like lights me up. I truly love coming to work every single day because of you guys.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Well, let's talk like a little bit about what your job even is on a day-to-day basis, because again, I mean, obviously both of you in your job search were looking at job descriptions, and certainly job descriptions serve their purpose, but you can't fully understand what it's actually like to be in the role until you're in it. So I'd love, maybe like, Liv, we can start with you. Can you kind of walk us through, like, what is it actually like to be an SDR?
Man, we are the pumping blood of this company. All right. We are at the forefront, client facing, hunting down cool new tech companies that we think are going to be a good fit for Klue, or that could use Klue, and see how we can benefit other teams that are out there. Lots of LinkedIn on SalesNav, lots of emails. We like to send out really cool personalized emails though. And I think that's like where the creativity really comes in. I think I've sent some super hilarious emails to people where I'm like, oh man, this is really cheeky, but I like genuinely mean it. But that's like a really big chunk. And then on this side too, there are the cold calls, which you'll get like tons of training on. We have our SDR manager, Brennan, who's been, man, he's like, yeah, I feel like we're all going to be like beasts on the phone. So 3 channels that we're working through is we're reaching out to people on LinkedIn. We're sending people emails. We're having phone calls to have conversations. Like, that's the goal, is you're trying to have conversations with people essentially about competitive intelligence.
How do you feel like, Joanna, going into those conversations? Like, are you intimidated? Especially, like, I feel the word cold call, there should be a better word to sum that up, because it's intimidating just in how it sounds. So how do you feel kind of going into those conversations?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. And actually cold call, and it's still something that I'm working on. And I think that, again, that's what's so cool about our team, is like, I brought that up a few times where I'm like, Kate, that's like not my sweet spot. That's my weakness. And there's a few people too. That's why I think right now, like our management is really helping us to kind of fine tune those skills and just give us different ways to go about it and feel confident and have, training and have some scripts and stuff like that. But I think what's the other really cool thing about sales that we haven't mentioned is, like, there is that training and there is that, team element and learning and stuff, but there is such a huge part of this job that's innovative, that you get to show up as yourself and put your spin on it, like in your personalized emails, right? Like, mine are probably super different than like Liv's. Like, Liv is, I think, really a lot more like creative in her mindset. I've got more of that like nurture, like elementary school teacher vibe. So like, kind of like that really like sweet, like I'm like always like, hey, happy Friday. Like,
yeah, you do. Like, I've seen your emails.
I'm the mom of the team. Like, and it's so interesting because it's not necessarily that one's better than the other, but it's like, you get to try your own stuff. And when it doesn't work, you're like, okay, I'm going to switch it up and try something different, right? Try to be a little bit more cheeky, or like send a GIF, or like try to be funny. So we can try all these like different sides. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that was something I wanted to kind of highlight about, again, that fear of sales. It's like, you don't just like come in and be like, hey, good luck to you. Like, you do get the training, and you do get, you can be handheld in any part that you want, as long as you speak up for yourself and just say, hey, like, look, like, man, nobody's opening any of my emails. Like, help me out here. And get that training. But then again, you have that side where you get to like be yourself. And I think that's my favorite part of the job and a huge part of our job is introducing people to Klue. So our goal is to get them on a call like this and have this rapport and back and forth and ask them questions about, what's going on in their company. And for me, it's like, I love it because like I love people and I love chatting and getting to know people. So there's that element. And then also even like selfishly, I am learning so much about back to the business world. Like I've been on calls, it's like the head of like Airbnb to like the head of like some trucking company to like some crazy SaaS business. And it's like every call is completely different and I'm running it. Like how freaking cool is that? And like, I think that for me is like, as a huge element of the job that I love. And I think as well as a salesperson, you're like the gatekeeper of the company. Like we are bringing in the revenue, we are bringing in the business. Klue wouldn't exist without us. So like, boom, like how empowering is that? Like,
I love it. The passion is just coming straight through the screen. I love it. I love it. Liv,
your side too. It's got like the nurture side. And then I think that's the other thing too in sales. You like unpack your like different sides of yourself. Right? Yeah.
Well, I like that you brought up even like how you can come in and try different things. Like I'll acknowledge when I started 4 months ago, there was kind of like a structure and a workflow that I was working in, or maybe certain messaging that I was doing. And it's different even from then to now. And I know it's going to be different in another couple months in the future too. And it's just because we keep getting these new people who are like, oh, you know what? Instead, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to actually try to contact these types of people. So it's like the opportunity is there for you as well to like come in, learn the rules, and then break them and then see what works and what sticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And I love everything that you guys have shared so far. And again, the passion, I love it.
Our whole team's like this. Like we're just like a small snippet of the big picture.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you imagine like a team of us?
Yeah.
Just wait until we all get into the office. It's going to be kind of hard to contain that.
We're work from home and be like, what are the salespeople doing over there? Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like, again, I think all of these insights in terms of like what it's actually like to be an SDR, I feel like have been very insightful even for me. And I guess I'm curious though, because again, everything we've talked about, I think has been for the most part super positive, but sales, as we mentioned, it's not an easy job. And as much as there are those highs and you can really ride off of those, there's also the real lows. So I'm curious, like if you can kind of share a little bit about maybe some of the more challenging experiences that you've had to deal with during your time as an SDR and kind of how you've dealt and kind of rebounded from those experiences.
I could take this one first if you want, Joe.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll say, I'm like, okay, so, the one challenge, and Joe's mentioned it before, is like, you get said no to often. Like that's a thing, or you don't get a response, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes you're going to work really hard and, draft these like beautiful messages for people, and you put a lot of care and time, and they might not even get opened. And I think that's, or you're going to call someone, they're not going to want to talk to you. Like, I think that's a very honest part of the role. And in terms of like kind of dealing with it, the way that I've always seen it is, one no doesn't mean that door is closed, right? There's not always just one door. There's other angles too that you can take. And, I think it's like, if you have one loss, like get back on the horse. Like that's one thing that I've really learned is just getting back on after potentially being shut down. And that's a skill set that I just like naturally want in life. And that's like a natural approach that I always want to encourage in life, because that's how it is, right? Things aren't always going to be perfect every time. And it's like, how can you snap back from that? I think that's kind of like one thing for me. Joe, do you see anything else there for yourself?
Yeah, I definitely like for sure agree with you. And I think, it's one of those things I think in life, when you're just like at the grocery store and like somebody gives you a dirty look or whatever, and you're kind of like, it's one of those things where it's like, you're in charge of yourself and your actions. And it's like, you get hung up on, or somebody's what's like, I was going to say a bad word. Somebody's like mean to you or like hangs up on you or whatever. And it's like, you can be like, oh man, like, and it kind of, you feel that like, ugh. But you're like, it's okay. Like maybe they were busy or, they're going into a meeting or, you know what, they just don't want to talk to me. And like, that's all right. I didn't do anything wrong. And it's like that kind of thing, right? Where it's, again, it is about kind of just being like, pick yourself up and do it again. And there are highs and lows, but the highs like literally like blow the lows.
Trumps it.
Like just, like you don't even, you don't remember the lows. You remember your highs, you don't remember your lows. And so, but there are some, right? And I think, when you first come in, it can be overwhelming if you're brand new, especially like for me, I was brand new to tech and to sales, so for me, like understanding the product and that, and then also being like, how do I explain this to people? and then, be able to sell it. But you just get better, like it's like slow. And then you just, all of a sudden it's crazy. Like I go on these, before I would run these like intro calls to hop on with people. And I would spend, like an hour before kind of practicing and researching and doing all that stuff. Now, like I just get on the call and you just feel comfortable and you feel natural. And like those highs in and of themselves are massive. And those are more personal and like intrinsic, right? Versus like, you can have a high, like we were saying about like kind of going outside the box. Like you might try something new and then all of a sudden the whole team like copies you and tries it too. Like that's such a high as well, so, but it is a challenging role, but I think what's so cool about it is that you show up every day and it's different. Every day is different. But you just build this foundation and you get better and better. And I love that, right? Versus going into a job and it's like the same thing every single day. Like the job is not boring. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Keeps you on your toes. We
have really funny stories. Like we have like such funny stories of, like we share cold calls with each other that are kind of funny.
That are good and maybe not so great either. That's totally fine.
Like you start doing your pitch and you're like, you're like, oh my God, I forgot how to speak. You're like, sorry, prospect. I'm just going to restart that again.
Yeah.
How to speak English. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
like you just kind of got to laugh at yourself.
I just think it's like, at first it's uncomfortable, but it's also like, I'm always reminded, it's like when I'm feeling uncomfortable, and I mean like in a certain like lens, but when I'm approaching something and I'm nervous, I know that I'm going to grow from it. Like, I know I'm going to get something out of it too. And that was the one thing that I've always like noticed with sales. And I think that's why I was also really choosing it, is like, I also want to work on developing myself. Like, I just want to be a beast of a human being naturally. So a lot of the things that we're going through, like a lot of these no's or challenges that we're facing are making like me a better person. Like I'm able to show up in other areas of my life that much stronger because I've been able to champion this one specific area or this one specific situation,
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I mean, again, both of you guys have joined in the context of a global pandemic. I feel like obviously that is unfortunately the main focal point of a lot of our lives on a day-to-day basis. But I think sales, like joining sales or getting into sales to begin with, is an intimidating thing in and of itself, let alone joining a company remotely and having to kind of go through the training program and just learning how to do sales. How has that experience been for both of you?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. And it's so funny because I go back and forth. I think for me, to be honest, one of the reasons why I left teaching was I wanted to be in a different environment. I wanted to work with young people in like a fast-paced environment. One of my sisters was in tech, and I was always so jealous. She had like all these like friends that were her age, and it was just like a cool environment. And I was jealous. Teachers are great, not knocking teachers, but I just was jealous of that. And so for me, that was a reason why I wanted to jump into it. And then of course I didn't get that with COVID and not being able to be in the office. However, I feel like our company has worked so hard to make sure that we do have that element. And, our team does really fun stuff. Like we have meetings all the time. We go on silent Zooms. We just message each other randomly and like work together if you want, or be like, hey, I need like, do you want to eat lunch together? And we do that. We have meetings all the time and have like fun competitions. And so as much as we're not in the office, there is that office vibe and there's that friend vibe. Like I feel like I have such good friends at Klue. I've literally met nobody. And it's insane. Like it's actually insane when you think about it, that's like a thing. But it's like, you it doesn't matter. You just feel connected and you're on the same team, and there's such a level of support that those people are there for you.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing, that's why I'm like, it's a bit of a sweet spot, is sales is intimidating to go into. Part of me is like, I could not imagine doing cold calls or going on intro calls when there's a whole bunch of people all around me. I love the fact that I'm in my little silent room. If I have a bad call, I can hit a dart on my dartboard back here, like
I thought you were meeting somebody else there for a second.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I have a win sometimes. I'm like, yeah, try to hit the bullseye. I never really actually make it, but it's okay. Still working on it. Space, right? And if you do something embarrassing or like something doesn't go right, you're like, meh, like nobody saw that. Who cares? Like you're in this almost like safety zone because you're on your own. But when you need to reach out and when you need to be elevated and you need people, you can do it like that as well. So it's a bit of this like sweet spot.
I think we're going to have to get a dartboard for the office, because how on earth are you going to transition like into an office space?
It's honestly the best. I also have this chalkboard, which before this video I erased because I have two nephews, and they come in and like draw, not really sure what they are, dinosaurs or something. And they like, I've been on calls before and I'm like trying to like block it out. Like, hey, Joanna from Klue. Not creative. I'm like, it's my 3-year-old nephew. It's not me.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah, I feel like that's the one thing with our SDR team is like, we're like a tight team. Like we really care about who we're working with. We've got like different chats on Slack too that are always going off. You can silence them so you're not getting the notifications all the time. But anytime you go in there, like one of our colleagues, Meg, was sending us photos of this really weird looking cat that was outside of her window. Or someone's going to be like, what should I have for lunch today? Like those are the types of conversations that we're having on there. And then there's another one that's more work focused. And Joe, like you mentioned, you like having this little space for that when you do potentially mess up a call or say something embarrassing, like you're solo. So you have the space to do that. But also it's like, I'm the type of person where I'm like, I need to talk to someone as soon as it happens. Like I still remember my first cold call that I ever did not go well. I had everything set up. I thought I was good. It happened, didn't go well. And I panic dialed one of my colleagues and I was like, I don't know what just happened. I was like, please talk me through this.
Save me.
He's like, save me. It was Josh. He's like, no, dude. He's like, it's good. I'm not even going to remember you tomorrow. I was like, so okay, sounds good. So the moral support's there too, if you need it. And our team loves to be around each other, but if you want to be solo, you can, but if you want to be with us, like it's all good. Yeah.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. For anyone who has actually made it this far in our little video podcast, I guess you could say, I hope this has given you some more insight into what it's like at Klue, what it's like to be an SDR, and more broadly, like being a woman in sales. The three of us, we are always happy to connect if you have any other questions, and we hope to see you or talk to you soon.